Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of City Skylines Dakota Falls. In today's episode, we're headed southwest to introduce a new town based on the Frontier West and Gold Rush of Colorado. Welcome to Bear Gulch. In today's episode, I'll be building the infrastructure and laying the groundwork for this new town, and building the detailed main street as well. Today's episode will also have me placing down services like fire and police. And make sure to stick around to the end of the episode to see all the off-camera details and have a few sneak peeks at what's coming next for the series. Kicking off the episode today, we're building the infrastructure that will lead up to the new town that we're building. This is US Highway 6 headed towards Bear Gulch, and this is taking direct inspiration from US 6 towards Golden and Idaho Springs from real life. I will have a few builds along this corridor coming up soon in the series, with a few industrial plants and factories, some warehouses planned for the valley east of Bear Gulch. And then on the west side of Bear Gulch and into the mountains, I plan to build a ski area. Now, this ski area is more of a ski recreation area that I plan to build, somewhat similar to Loveland Pass, if you're familiar with that. So don't get too excited for a full-on ski resort build just yet. I do plan to come back and build that later in the series, inspired by some of the mountain resorts in the west. But I do want to keep some cool builds for later on, so that the series doesn't get stale when I start to run out of ideas. I'll be doing a deeper dive into the lore and the history of Bear Gulch later in the video, but for now just keep in mind that this town was founded off of the gold rush of the late 1800s. So I wanted the street grid and the present day city to kind of reflect that, with a historic main street going through the center of town and a couple of side streets that were developed later, maybe to divert traffic away. Up next, I'm going to need a new interchange to connect to the east-west highway that I just built into Bear Gulch to the major interstate freeway headed north-south in this build, I-25. For this interchange, I decided to go with a slightly modified cloverleaf design here, since I wanted to build something that I could potentially come back to and modify and improve later on. It will also give me a good excuse to keep going back to areas that I've already built and keep growing and evolving the city. Or maybe I'm just too used to building Rust Belt cities and I'm afraid of building safe infrastructure. Either way, for now the Sims and Jackson will just have to suffer with this inferior and slightly dangerous design. Now, I actually come back and slightly modify this design, and a big shout out to RS for helping me brainstorm on this final design with the left lane merge. This actually helps reduce the amount of elevated road needed for this interchange, which brings up the realism a bunch. And not to mention, it reduces the weaving here as well, which helps out a lot with the traffic pattern. So big thank you to RS for helping me figure out this final design here for this modified cloverleaf. Up next, it's time for the interchange details, and for that I'm placing down some signage, and we'll come back and place down custom guide signs as well. I get a bunch of questions about how these custom freeway guide signs work, so I've linked them down in the description below. They're fully customizable and procedural objects. You can place custom text on them and also some images with some special fonts and PO. and I plan to fully detail and accurately detail all the freeways in my build using these. In my opinion, these signs make a really big difference for the world building and giving a sense of space within the city. You might even catch a few hints at the places we'll go next by reading some of these guide signs. With that major interchange built, let's head back into town as I prepare to start putting down some of the first buildings on Main Street, aka Wahatoya Avenue. I'm just dragging the highway through town and adding a few additional streets to the suburbs surrounding downtown, and then I'm going to be finishing off with a few final looks here at the Gulch area before I start filling it out with buildings. Bear Gulch is going to be the small town Americana build and primarily going to be inspired by towns like Golden, Colorado, Bozeman, Montana, Idaho Springs, Colorado, and also with a bit of mountain town charm to it as well. I really wanted to try to give this city its own unique identity, separate from Rock Springs, and in order to do that, I'm trying to make this city custom all the way down to the custom street signs and the brick detailing on Main Street. And I hope that you'll find it's a very distinct and separate area from the rest of the build. In this downtown area of Bear Gulch, I'm choosing to limit the building height to 20 meters in order to try to capture the atmosphere of a Western American small town that has preserved its historic core. And to do that, I'm using a lot of assets here from creators like Motocero, Turbo Cobra, Smileys, and Daniel as well to help fill out this area here and give me the feel that I'm looking for out of this tourism-friendly Main Street. In order to connect the highway up to the town of Bear Gulch and start allowing some residents to move into the city, I decided to create a simple and compact diamond design here, and I'm using one-way frontage roads in each direction, and you'll see in a few moments that I come back and add a few additional alternate exits as well in each direction to help divert traffic around some and ease the congestion on the main interchange here. This, paired with some timed traffic lights, should be able to handle the low to medium amount of traffic that I would expect this interchange would see. around the highway, I'm going to be trying to capture the realistic zoning uses that you would see around freeways, such as gas stations, light industrial, some strip mall style shopping centers, maybe a fast food place or two, and then some public housing and rental condos. The area will act as a small buffer between the nicer parts of the historic downtown in the south of town and the more expensive suburbs in the more recently developed north of town. Now, as I'm wrapping up some of the freeway infrastructure around Bear Gulch and really nailing down the details here, I want to give a quick shout out to Arlas from my Discord for giving me a really good tip on how to quickly detail these freeways. And the tip is actually, if you go into intersection marking tool and you use these road wear decals and you just assign them to different lanes, you can even change the color of them a bit. And that's kind of what I've done here to simulate different levels of road wear and even different colors of road wear. And it really comes together to give this freeway such a realistic look. So I want to give a big thank you to Arlas for cluing me into that. With all the major infrastructure in the town now built and complete, it's time to start working on some of the essential services that the city will need, like fire and police. But first, I'm actually going to start by building out the suburbs and start filling out some of the residential homes around downtown. When I was setting out to create the services for Bear Gulch, I had a certain idea in mind for how I wanted these service buildings to look for fire and police. And this asset here by Boldly Building really captured exactly what I was looking for out of a civic kind of brickwork design for a small town firehouse. And I was really happy to find it on the workshop. I've got it linked in the description below, but this station in combination with the Bear Gulch Fire Department vehicles from Blue Thunder really come together to create the atmosphere that I wanted out of a small town fire department. And I'm really happy with how these assets came out. A big thank you as always to Blue Thunder and LazyBot for their talents in creating these really awesome fire department vehicles. And if you like these trucks as much as I do, feel free to check out the description below for Blue Thunder's Patreon, and you can pick these up and use them in your city as well. Similar to the fire department vehicles that I just showed off from Blue Thunder, we have these amazing new police department vehicles from Apollon Driver. And these Crown Victorias are based on the Mesa County Sheriff vehicles out in western Colorado. I'm a really big fan of how these turned out, and really excited to show these police vehicles off as I start to detail out this realistic department for them. Now that we've brought a custom police and fire department into Bear Gulch and brought those essential services to the city, it's time to come back to the main street and start heavily detailing this area. I want this town to have a unique atmosphere, and that's really going to come down to these little details that I add. And we're starting here with this crosswalk in the middle of Main Street. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I really want Bear Gulch to target this small town Americana vibe that's been revived into a tourist town. And in order to capture that, I really want this town to be walkable and have a lot of attractions and storefronts. So that's what I'm about to start working on now, is just kind of bringing that atmosphere into town through these details. In 1859, during Colorado's first gold rush, a prospector named Joppy Bertone rode into the Table Mountain Valley with little more than a mule, a pickaxe, and a dream of getting rich. As the founding story goes, he stumbled into the gulch at dusk and saw the silhouette of a massive brown bear in the setting sun, and to Bertone, it was a sign. He named this area Bear Gulch and set up camp, which soon became a settlement. And maybe Bertone was right, as the gold flowed freely at first. Settlement boomed, and saloons, storefronts, and the Bear Gulch Mining Company was shipping gold and ore out by the ton. But the riches didn't last. By the early 1900s, the gold had dried up, the trains had stopped running into the valley, and Bear Gulch had become a near ghost town. Wind howled through the abandoned mine shafts like a ghost calling for something long lost. And for years, the town was nearly forgotten. But then slowly, the world took notice again. First came the rock climbers, drawn by the sheer faces of the Flatiron Mountains nearby. And then came the artist, enchanted by the way the light hit the mesas at sunset. And then came the tourist, weekenders from the city, looking for that charm and history, a mountain town that felt like a piece of the past frozen in time. And now the old mining shacks are boutique lodges. The saloons pour craft beer instead of rot gut whiskey. The once deserted Main Street hums with ice cream shops and climbing outfitters, and neon lit diners catering to the travelers bound for the trails. but the bones of this old town still linger beneath it all. Some say if you listen closely, you might even still hear that past, whispers in the wind, and maybe, just maybe, catch a glint of the gold still hidden in the rocks. Earlier in the video, remember when I said I wanted to make this town custom all the way down to the street signs? Well, that's what we're going to be doing now. I want to capture a really unique and different feel from this town from the rest of the towns in the build. And one of the small ways that I plan to help separate this town from the rest is by using these brown street signs. I think they add just a little bit of additional character and flair that will really let you know like you are in a unique and separate place in the build once you arrive in Bear Gulch. One other simple way that I plan to use details in this town to kind of differentiate it a bit from the other builds I've done is through the road detailing and intersection marking tool. As you can see here, I am just using intersection marking tool to add some brick crosswalks and intersection details. And not only will this help make this town a little bit more unique from the other towns I've built, but it should help with my goals of making this a little bit more walkable by getting drivers to slow down a little bit by driving over these brick patterns and breaking up their visual field of view when they're driving down the road. Because when you see these patterns in the road, it psychologically just makes you slow down a bit. As always, I want to give a big thank you to all of my supporters on Patreon for helping make this all possible and allowing me to create cities in my spare time. And also, I want to give a big shout out to the entire Dakota Falls team for helping make this entire project possible with your great talents in creating assets. If you watched the end of the video, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode of City Skylines Dakota Falls.